Hi everyone, Mira Raven here. Welcome to the Black to Business show. Um, and I am really looking forward to our show tonight. And I'm very excited to have our guest on tonight. And if you are just arriving here, I see there's a couple of people looks like who've come in. So as you come in, please, say hello. It's always nice to know who's in the room because I just get a little eye with a number, which, you know, so it's nice to know who's here. So just say hello, drop something in the comments. If you're on YouTube, drop something in the comments. If you're on Facebook, you can drop something in the comments and just say hello. Throughout the conversation today, feel free to comment. I'll try to get to if anybody has questions or comments. There'll be kind of a little bit of a discussion going, and I may try to bring in people's points or bring up or highlight different comments as things roll. So please don't be shy. The whole point of this is for things to be like a community, like, so this is all about community building. And the purpose of the Black to Business show is to bring together Black excellence and Black experts, predominantly in Chicago, but I really want to go beyond Chicago as well. But I wanted to start with Chicago, and really because there's really so much Black excellence here in Chicago. So just to kind of give anybody who's watching this for the first time just an idea of what the goal is with this show is to really, again, educate our community, the Black community. We need to share with each other our expertise. We need to share the things that we've learned, because back in the day, it was just about community. We were more tribal, we were more communal. We had the powwows, we had, around the circle, the storytelling that is so part of our culture. And sometimes with technology, we've sort of gotten away from some of that. And I think that this is a way to sort of rekindle those efforts. So I see some people said hello. Thank you for saying hello. We've got Betty Peyton White. Hello, Betty. And Roger Thomas. Hello. Thank you guys for being here. So without further ado, we're going to get started. We're going to get rolling. We've had a crazy year, and here in Chicago, we're getting ready to officially open on the 11th. And lots of interesting things to talk about today. So without further ado, I'm going to get things kicked off here. And we'll bring Mable on in just a second after this little intro I made. Black to business, we're a family, melanated we need to free to see the truth from the wisdom. The diamonds hiding beyond our pain, our name, our light, our life. We're a family, melanated we need to grow, need to know, need to glow, need to go. Black to business, black to business. All right, here we are. Okay, so we're gonna bring on Mable right now, and wait for it. There she is, Miss Mable. Mable, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm
Good.
good. We are so excited to have you here, or I
Thank you
guess
so much for
I'm
having
so
me.
excited. Because today, actually, we usually have Mr. Gregory Sane on with us today, and today was sort of we ended up having to have just me today, so it's just me and Mabel. But next month we'll have Gregory back on as well. So, but it's good. It'll be nice. I was joking with Mabel that I like to talk a lot. Greg likes to talk a lot, and Mabel likes to talk a lot. So I feel like it's probably pretty good if it's just me and Mabel, because between the two of us, we'll fill up the space. so, so I want to get into this. I know some of the people that are in the room know Mabel. Some people are totally, totally new. So for the people that don't know you, kind of, you're just one of the reasons I'm so glad to have you on the show is I just think there's so much. You really are the you are you are black excellence in a nutshell. Like
Oh,
you
wow.
are,
Thank you.
yes, you are. You so are.
You.
You've done so many amazing things. I mean, I don't even think I'm gonna be able to like list all the amazing things you've done. But I feel like you've done you've done things that I feel like would inspire people and they would go, "Oh my god, how did she do it? How did she do all of this?" You've had your own business. You've been the executive director of Streeterville Chamber of Commerce for you had been there for so long. You also had worked with the House of Blues. You've done. I mean, you've just done all these different things. You work with entertainers. 5-star, top-notch entertainers. You've grown your business from just wherever you started, which is actually that's something I want to ask you about, is sort of how you grew everything. So we'll get to that. But I just, all in all, I just want to say that, I have so much respect for you, and so much respect for not only just your character, but and not only just what you've done, but also just just the combination of all those things and how you've just navigated through life to this point. So I have so much respect for you. So I just want to, start off with just gratitude that I've got connected to you through,
Mm-hmm.
just fate, whatever,
You're the
just
same,
blowing us
actually.
through the paths of life. So tell us a little bit about tell us a little bit about your upbringing and sort of were there defining moments in your experiences that that you feel like really made you who you are today?
I would say I came from a close knit family. Uh, I was very fortunate. Can you hear me?
Oh yes, I can hear you
Okay.
just fine.
I
You
was
sound
very
great.
fortunate that I had two parents
Mm-hmm.
household, and my father was a big advocate of education.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the day, when I was coming up, if you was a nurse or a teacher, that was a respectable field for a female. But my dad instilled how important education was. And he also taught his girls how to be respectful, earn respect. My mother always said, you treat a person the way you want to be treated. So when you go to bed at night, you'll be able to put your head on a pillow and don't have to worry about your conscience. So those are things that really that helped me. And as I got older, there were a few people that really had a major impact in my life besides my parents and my siblings, uh, and that was James Brown. I don't think I could have made it in the entertainment industry without him. He was
Wow.
my mentor musically, life coach, and he honestly was my godfather. He learned, I learned so much from that man, especially the back end. I like the back end of entertainment. There are a lot of people who does the in the front, like the singers, musicians, but they don't understand that there's other components with that. Being a producer or a songwriter or a stage manager, and they don't get the accolades because they don't understand that all that is part of the show. But I like that. And I went to James. I said, I want to learn this. And he's like, really? And I'm like, yes. I was so intrigued about the different colors of the music board in the studio and how that played in recording. And he taught me that. Now, James had a sixth grade education, but you would have thought that he got his, and he used to always say, uh, you got your BA degree from the James Brown University. And so I got my BA with him, and I just love it. The other person that's been an inspiration in my life is my godmother, Mary D, television personality with the former WGN.
Mm-hmm.
She taught me the respect of how to act like a woman in this business, how to handle things, how to know when to hold and fold, and not just take anything. As James Brown used to always say, if you don't put a dollar sign on yourself, nobody will know your self worth.
Mhm.
So I still go to her and crown her children and say, well, do you think I should do this? How should I handle this? And she gives me advice to this day, and I love her with all my heart. The other person is my late husband, James Payton. Some people call him Jimmy Payton. Some people call him Fashion Plate. Uh, he taught me how to hold and to fold, how to deal with different people personalities. And that I can say was a thing that I didn't know how to do. And he taught me that. And I'm so grateful to that. And I think that's how I got into with the chamber because I knew how to deal with personalities.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like, and that's something that, in terms of sort of having those values. I mean, what I'm hearing is, from your upbringing, you had like you had a nice value system. I mean, your parents, both of your parents were invested and interested
Mm-hmm.
in your, not only just your success, but they wanted to take the time to make sure that you felt confident in who you were, and you felt that you were able to take on the challenges in the world. I mean, you must have had some reassurance of that in your childhood that leaked over into your adulthood, I would think.
Oh,
So
yeah.
that's important. It's important because we have to think about, in the black community, this is, it's good to look at people that are successful and say, what are the things, what were the nutrients, what were the
Mm-hmm.
fertilizers in that person's life that allowed them to be successful? Because we need as many black people to be successful as possible. And it's not to say that anything is not to say anything about any other race or anything like that. I'm just saying that in terms of, I'm looking out for my community. And
Yeah.
when I look out for my community, I want the people in my community to
Mm-hmm.
be successful. And I want them to feel like they have the tools that they need to do the job. And I feel like that's, something we have to do in our families, and something that it seems like your family, equipped you with the tools to do the job, and we need the same thing. We need the tools to do the job. So I think that that's really amazing. It's amazing that you were able to, were your parents, um did they have you, were they really strong on like education, or did
Mm-hmm.
they
Yes, they
really
were.
kind of, yeah,
My
and they
dad
were,
was really,
mhm.
and he was really serious about that. Uh, and he constantly told me, "You can't get nowhere in this world without an education." And so I got my degrees. I made him proud. I remember when they wanted to give me uh, a a fifth grade. They didn't want to they want to pass me over from fifth grade to sixth grade, and my dad would not allow me to take that promotion that as I could say. And he says, "No, I don't want you growing up too fast." I was the oldest, so I had to go through the jumps. And so when I got in high school, I didn't have a junior year because I went to summer school all year. Me and my girlfriend Charlotte, and we went from a sophomore to a senior, and I graduated out of high school at 16. So my dad could not say no to me because it was right there on the wall that, I was ready to. I love school. I love the first day of school. I've always liked school. So he says, okay. And he allowed me to skip over my junior year and finish high school at 16 years old.
Wow.
Hmm.
Wow,
I made him very proud. So, yes.
that is so cool. So basically you like, you pretty much like finished early.
I did. I did. I finished early. I finished
Wow.
college early.
Uh-huh.
Um, I have a bachelor's degree in education,
Mhm.
a master in managerial leadership. I did go to school to be a teacher, and I did teach. I taught in Las Vegas, and I taught here in Chicago. I taught autism.
Mhm. Wow. So you taught wait, say it again, you taught what?
My major was education.
Mhm.
So I taught in Las Vegas, and I taught different subjects in Las
Mhm.
Vegas, unfortunately, because there was shortage of teachers. So I taught English, I taught history, I taught music,
Wow.
and when they had me to replace the music teacher, I went to my husband. I was like, I don't know anything about no keys. He was like, I help you because I had to get a choir together,
Mhm.
and the kids were like, "Well, Mrs. Buckner, are you going to play the piano?" I don't know how to play the piano, and I thought that was kind of wrong that they threw me in that room,
Right.
and I didn't know. But with the grace of my husband's friends that are in the industry, the entertainment industry, they came to my rescue and helped me, and we put together a choir for the middle school that I was teaching. So we had to put a program together and separate the different uh, children. And one of my friends who did it and helped me was Melanie Moore Seals. Janice Carter was one that came in. He had a lot of the entertainers come in and help put these kids together because I did not know a E flat from a G or anything like that. And then when I came to Chicago, my minor was special ed, and they needed special ed teachers, and I taught autism. And I just love autism kids. You know, people think that they uh, mentally challenged, but they're smart kids. They're really smart kids, and they love to draw. And they're so precious. You know, I just love them.
Oh, yeah.
They
No,
just
I
warm my
do
heart.
too. I'm a teacher too. I teach music, and so I've worked with lots of different kids, different, kids and adults actually.
Hmm.
And I feel the same way. I feel like a lot of times they can be very, people can be very, I mean, really just kids in general, different kinds. I mean, I've worked with kids that have ADD, or they get
Hmm.
labeled with this or that, different kind of thing, or kids that were foster kids, or kids that, all kinds of kids I've worked with. Even worked with kids, kids who had, the typical kids who have, rich parents, but their parents don't care about them, kind of thing. That's a thing too. They are all the kids of the world. They all, kids, not to say that they have it rough, but it's to say that during these times where we have all these technologies and all this stuff that we're trying and doing, and kids, they're more stressed out than they used to be, because they have to deal with all, they're dealing with us as we're dealing
Hmm.
with all these changes that we're trying to make, in, society and technology and everything. But I also wanted to ask you kind of, what was it like, what was it like for you as a black woman trying to come up in the entertainment industry? I kind of want to talk about how because how did you get from, you said you started as, sort of with like teaching. What kind of shifted you into the entertainment industry from being a teacher? What was sort of the thing that kind of made you go, oh, wait, how did you kind of find your way with that?
I found my way back because actually, when I was 16, I won a Soul Train dance contest here in Chicago. Don Cornelius used to have this dance contest where different contestants all over the world will compete against each other. And my partner Albert Adams and I, we won and represented Chicago out in Los Angeles, and we won. And then we danced on Soul Train for 2.5 years. After dancing on Soul Train for 2.5 years in Los Angeles, he introduced me to James Brown. And James and I got a connection, and he asked me to work for him and to dance with him. So I started dancing with James Brown, and we went on tour with him. And I can tell you, a lot of people like traveling and touring. It's very stressful. And I was like, I'm tired. I mean, I have seen the world with this man, but I was more intrigued about learning the back end, the public relations, the marketing. And I kept saying that to him. And he says, you keep asking me about that. You really want to do that? I said, yeah, I want to get off the stage. I want to do the back end. You would mind if I could work for you on that end? And he kept laughing at me. He said, you funny. Because he says, most people like attention and you don't want attention. So I did. And I helped him in the PR and the marketing. He called Ebony Magazine. He introduced them and said she will start handling my PR and marketing. And so that's what I did. And I did it for years.
And I know you gave me a couple of photos, and I think it would be appropriate to show those photos as we're talking about this because you sent me some photos, blast from the past of you and Mr. Brown. So I kind of want to share those if that's okay.
That's okay.
Let's see here. Give me one moment. Do-do. I think. Okay, let's see. Is this? Yeah, they just gotta present it. Okay, well, let's go back to the beginning. Haha, sorry. Okay, so there's one. So tell me about this one.
That picture was actually taken here in Chicago at the Park West,
Oh.
which is in Lincoln Park here in Chicago.
Mhm.
James loved to play at the Park West because of the sound system. So that was backstage there. Yeah, I recall. I remember that one.
Wow. And I was saying you look exactly the same. You pretty much look
But
exactly the
that's Lou
same.
Ross, and that was at a banquet facility on 95th and Cicero. Is no longer there. I can't think of the name of that. Him and a lot of the jazz artists like Nancy Wilson, they
Mhm.
performed at that banquet facility. It was like a rotunda, and I did work for Lou Ross as well. So
Wow.
Lou brought me on to do some things for him. I did things
Mhm.
for Otis Clay. I did things for Bobby Rutch, Al Green, Johnny Taylor. Those are the artists that I did a lot of the PR with.
And there's
That
Mr.
picture
Brown
there
again.
was taken in Los Angeles at the House of Blues. James had stock in the House of Blues. A lot of people don't know that. He had stock, and so that's why he did the opening, the grand opening to all the House of Blues.
Oh.
So that
Wow.
night it was him and I, Dan Aykroyd and his wife, and a couple other people. We were backstage all night until sunlight, just reminiscing, talking about Jim Belushi, uh, the Blues Brothers when they did the movie. We were just having a good time.
That must have been so cool. What was it like? Because I know you said one of the things that was, you mentioned earlier was the fact that you were on Soul Train.
Hmm.
Um, and what was that like? Was it in
Well,
comparison? I mean, to now, because you have to know from, being a millennial, obviously I was not even
Soul
in the
Train back in
world
the day
even
was
during
the
that.
show that we was looking forward to every Saturday to watch uh, growing up.
Mm-hmm.
Don started that show here in Chicago on Channel 26 with Clinton Gent. Then he took it out to Los Angeles, and he just went skyrocket. I mean, bloom. And some of his guests that helped him excel to that level was the Shy Lights, Gladys Knight. If you, he had a show. There was a show that they just recently had on TV called Soul Train that was marked about his lifestyle, and it is true. A lot of that was true. He would give us two-piece chicken, Kentucky Fried Chicken, because he had a sponsorship with Kentucky Fried Chicken, and we just had a ball. We were just enjoying dancing. At that time, Demita Joe Freeman, Thelma Davis, uh, Jeffrey Daniels, Jody Watley was on there, and then you had Juliet Hartman on there, Tyrone Proctor, Little Joe
Mm.
Chisholm. Those were the dancers. And during that time, we were doing, the Locket, the robot. You had rerun. It was really a blast. We had fun. I mean, we truly had a lot of fun. Those were the good days. Trust me when I tell you. I wish I could go back.
It sounds, I mean, when I look at pictures from that, I always
Hmm.
think, man, I wish that I could be back in like the 70s or something, like at a like roller disco, like
Those
I
were the
don't know,
days.
it just seems like so much fun. Sometimes I feel like the world that we the music that we have and you can kind of tell by the music and the the culture, right? The culture tells the
Hmm.
story of the time. And so I feel like with this time and all the culture that's millennial culture and millennial music, a lot of times I actually don't really like that as much, honestly. I find myself listening to a lot more jazz and a lot more like old, like soul, and listening to like some of my favorite artists are people from like, musicians from the 60s, the 70s, the
Hmm.
50s, the 40s, the 30s, the 20s, um, even before that, and then we also have, yeah, there are some amazing musicians nowadays too. It's not to
Yes,
say there
it
isn't amazing music. There's still amazing music, but it's just the stuff that's popular is,
is. I understand.
tepid at best. Not really anything to write home about, as they would say. So another thing I want to ask you about is, I kind of want to talk a little bit about, um, what has been, what was one of the biggest, because you were obviously a strong, smart, intelligent black woman and beautiful, right? So,
Well, thank you.
and well, yeah, I mean, obviously, it's kind of like, yeah, and beautiful. I mean, duh. But I think
So
that
are you.
when you have all those things, you're like a quadruple threat, right? Because when you're smart and talented and you're good at what you do, and it's like I mean, that's a lot of power, right? And
Correct.
so, what was it like for you trying to navigate through, through school, through the workplace, all these different periods of time? I feel, and I feel as a ambitious black woman, whenever you're an ambitious black woman, people go, oh, oh, well, she thinks she's the, or whatever like, I don't know if you've experienced that, but I feel like sometimes people don't want you to be, they can't accept, like, they can't comprehend that you would be a black woman who's also very intelligent, who's also very attractive, who's also very, all of these things. It's like, oh no, black women can only be this or they could be that, but they can't be it all. And so what has been your experience with that? Have you ever experienced something where you feel like people want to see you a certain way? Or do you feel like, no, you've had kind of like, people really see you the way that you want them to see you?
Well, you know, are you talking about in the music industry? Or are you talking about me being with the chamber?
I'm talking about the music industry and maybe just
Okay.
in general growing up, like in school, for instance. If you were, I'm assuming you were probably one of the smartest, if not the smartest kid in your class. And what was that like, as a black
Well, I
woman
had
being
great
able to,
classmates, and I'm still good friends with my classmates. Um,
yeah,
we right now is thinking about doing something. This is our 45th year, uh, and graduating. Yeah, although I graduated a year early from my actual class, I am still connected to my class I should have graduated with in 76. Although I graduated in 75, I still consider myself with the class of 1976. And this year marks our 45th anniversary. And so I'm still very close to a lot of the classmates that I grew up with. I try to stay grounded. I don't like mixing politics with and gospel, but I will tell you, it has been my faith in God, my strength in praying that has gotten me to where I am today. I'm very old school. I'm very old school. Even when I'm pushed in a corner, I go back to the way I was brought up, listening to Albertina Walker, James Cleveland, Shirley Caesar, Rance Allen. These gospel singers that had a message in their songs. You know, the Lord will make a way. You know, Albertina Walker. Uh, uh, I thank you. I love that song that she made. Shirley Caesar has made several songs that I love. One of my favorites from her is "No Charge." I carried you for 9 months. She's talking about a kid. No charge.
yeah,
You know, uh, James Cleveland. Where is your faith? You know, you're in the courtroom. You can't put your faith in man. You have to put your faith in God. And so, Yes, it's been very hard in this industry because, especially with male entertainers, they think that a woman don't know the back end, producing, writing, lighting, sound, until you prove yourself, and they say, "Oh my God, she
Mm-hmm.
knows her stuff."
Oh
And then
yeah, I
that's
know
where the
that one.
respect comes in at. That's
Mm-hmm.
where the respect comes in. They be like, "Oh, she, oh my God," and especially if you can get them the money that they're asking for, they really like you. They're like, "Okay, good, great," but no, it has nothing to do with color in that industry. It's being a female, period. It is
Oh,
very
so it
hard
is
because
more
it's the
just a.
good old boys club.
Mm-hmm.
It
Yeah.
really is
Mm-hmm.
because they really do not think that a woman knows the back end of entertainment, and you have to prove yourself. And once you prove yourself, it's gravy.
That makes sense, and that speaks to what I've experienced too. Being that I had my own jazz collective, and I'm actually in the middle of I'm usually used to being the leader and the one that's actually doing like the footwork of getting the gigs,
Yes.
booking the gigs, getting people together, making sure everybody's got what they're supposed to have. And yeah, so I've had experiences, as a band leader too, where I put up my charts and people question them and pick them apart, and I come in knowing exactly what I want, and I will explain it to the person and go, no, this is what and they'll go, oh, okay, oh, all right, So, but you have to, as you said, you have to prove it, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. You know, I don't mind proving myself because I would never want to just be all talk and no action. I
Mm-hmm.
would, and
That's
I feel
true.
like you're the same way. You really speak, you really speak to your morals, and one of the things that you mentioned to me that I really respect, and something that I'm going to definitely be inspired by in the way that I, conduct my business, is that you really talked about how you really you really take the time to take care of the entertainers that you work with. And can you talk a little bit more about kind of how you feel like your approach, um, what kind of things you do differently, that you feel like, makes you the amazing event planner and organizer and, producer that you are? What are the things that you feel like that you do differently that make a bigger difference
I
with the
keep my word.
clients?
I keep my word. When I talk with the entertainer, I ask what they want, how much they want, and then I go to the client and we negotiate what it is that they are looking for and what they want to pay.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm doing it and bringing that entertainer in for myself, I'm going to treat that entertainer like I want to be treated. People don't understand something, and here's the problem. If an entertainer is charging, let's say, $10,000 to perform, a lot of people don't even understand it. They say, "Oh my God, $10,000. That's a lot of money." Well, they ain't working, especially now with the pandemic. Well, they're not working. Why am I going to give them $10,000? And excuse me. Here's why. If you don't, like James Brown said, if you don't put a dollar sign on yourself and know your self worth, then nobody else will. Here's the reason why an artist may charge 10,000 or 15 or $20,000. I tell you why. All that money is not going to them. They have to pay, depend on the rider, they have to pay for the airfare. And nowadays with this pandemic, the airfare has gone up. Okay. Depending on if it's a group and a band and they're coming from different cities, some airfare is going to cost more than others. It depends on if they have to pay for their lodging or if that client is paying for their lodging. Most of the time, the client does pay for the lodging, but then you also have to pay for the agent or the agency that got you the gig, which is typically 10 to 15% commission on whatever you charge. Then you got to consider that they're getting up early in the morning, coming in a day early. They got to do sound check. They got to pay the band. Okay, every band member got to be paid. It depends on lighting and sound. They may have to bring in their lighting and sound. They got to get ready. As far with a woman, we got hair, we got makeup. Guys got to have their suits, shirts together, the whole bit. So all this is being deducted. So you got to
Right.
respect that artist when they ask for that type of money because at the end of the day, they actually not getting $12,000. It's subtract, 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 subtract. So when people are asking for someone to perform, they need to really consider and understand what that artist or group is going through to get to you to make give you a good show. And all that money is not going in that individual pocket.
Right. There's a lot of and I did hear somebody said if hopefully you guys can hear me. I have the microphone is turned on. It seems to be things seem to be good. Hopefully people can hear me okay. But I just changed the level. So if you still can't hear me, let me know. But I think it should be good. You can hear me okay, Mabel?
I can hear you.
Okay. But I would say something in the comments if you guys still can't hear me. But as far as I can tell, my microphone's on and it's pretty hot. So I don't want to blow people out either. But in terms of what you just were saying, I think that that's a good conversation to have. It's a good thing to talk about because I know as an entertainer, and also as a booker, being in both situations where I'm booking an event, but I'm also like going to perform in it. And so I also, the fact I think, putting yourself in that person's shoes and saying, okay, what, because so many people don't think about the fact that you're not just paying for the actual, people say, oh, $100 an hour, that's so much, or, you know, whatever, $500 an hour. But the thing is, so much goes into not just the things that you mentioned, but even on a smaller level,
Mm-hmm.
even as a jazz musician, I paid like $100,000 to go to school to study this. I paid, not only that, I had to pay for instruments. I had to pay for the education. And so that's a lot of money that gets put down just to be on that level, and then of course all the hours that you spend practicing
Mm-hmm.
to hone your craft. And people don't think about the fact that if you really were to count the hours that musicians put into the
The original
sound,
show, and yes,
right there, then we, for what we
it,
get paid, we probably don't even get paid as much as we should, unless you're on the maybe on the really high levels. But even still, there's still so much, like you said, there's so many
mm-hmm.
expenses.
And people don't. Another thing people don't understand: there are some really fantastic local artists in the community here
Hmm.
in Chicago that people need to start looking at and saying, you know what, I want to use some local entertainers. If you can't pay the 10 and 12,000 and 15 and 20,000, look at your local entertainers. They got to start from somewhere, and we have some excellent entertainers here in Chicago that are local. And I try to advocate for them and try to book them as much as I can. I know everybody like a name, but you got to start from somewhere, and they could be a good opening act. You know, they need to, they need the exposure, just like how you gonna get up to the top if you don't start from the bottom.
And I think that also, as somebody who, like, I run a jazz collective, and one of the main things that I'm trying to do is kind of bridge that gap, like work with some of the younger, some of the, I mean, I also work with people who are professionals, but I like working with people too that are trying to bridge the gap between, kids that are coming out of school, like myself, went to school and actually went to school and studied jazz or studied classical and put that time and energy, that money into it, but then also providing something for businesses. So one of the things that
Yes.
I do is I'm trying to create something, like a symbiotic relationship with businesses and commerce, to help them, give them something interesting, because live music is really special. And when you can add it into like your restaurant or your store, or even some spontaneous event where there's music, anytime there's live music, people are always going to be, especially if it's good live music, people are
Hmm.
going to be they're gonna be happy in your store. They're gonna want to stay and talk longer. They're
Yes.
gonna that's gonna reflect on your business, and essentially it's like
Yeah.
marketing, or it's like, complimentary, those little complimentary mints that you get out the door that just add that little
So
that
we'll
little
add it to.
touch.
Yeah.
So I agree with you, and that's kind of one of the things I want to talk about and get into, as well, is sort of, because we are just coming out of COVID, and
Ugh.
we had all of this, and so obviously we had a couple conversations. I remember when COVID first hit, about how this is affecting the entertainment industry, and we all kind of know. I think the main effects were, the fact that so many people lost, you know, jobs, essentially, or gigs. So many things were
Ugh.
canceled.
Hmm.
And so what was that? How did you navigate through that with everything? What kept you going through it?
Well, first of all, I was planning a Dream Awards here in Chicago for April 2020 at the Palmer House Hotel. And the Palmer House is one of our historical hotels, been here for years. Unfortunately, due to COVID, the Palmer House closed their doors and then they went out of business completely. And I had put a deposit down, had all these entertainers scheduled to come in, and they did, of course, when they closed their doors and filed bankruptcy, I lost money.
Hmm.
There was a lot of entertainers that had shows on their books last year, and depending on their contracts, some of them probably had to give back that deposit. Some people were probably rearranging, trying to reschedule the dates because we didn't know about how this pandemic was going to wear out. I mean, nobody did. So the question is, they kept rescheduling and rescheduling, and I know a lot of entertainers were getting, discouraged. You know, we're going to move you to June. We're going to move you to
Yeah.
September. We're going to move you to November. And it got to a point where some of the entertainers were calling me and it was like, do you think we're ever going to get out of this pandemic? My God, from having to keep rescheduling. Well, it's because nobody knew how long it was going to go, unfortunately. And some entertainers had prepared themselves for a rainy day. Some people didn't, unfortunately. And in my case, I had prepared myself uh, a little bit because that's one of the things my dad taught me. Always put money aside for a rainy day.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I was kind of like prepared a little bit for fallback, but I wasn't prepared for a whole year. I'm like, oh my God, we're gonna be in this for a whole year, but
Yeah.
we're coming out slowly, and the entertainers are happy. They're more, I think, comfortable doing outdoor festivals right now than an indoor festival or a concert because everybody has not been vaccinated and they're concerned about that. You know, unfortunately, I had a family member that we lost in March from COVID. So, I mean, and I have an elderly mother. So I'm very conscious and careful who I bring in my space because I have to be careful with her and I don't want anything to happen to her. And so, as far as
Mm-hmm.
the Dream Awards is concerned, I am not looking to do anything this year. I'm looking to do something next year with the Dream Awards because I think people will be more comfortable going inside than
Mm-hmm.
this year. I really do.
Yeah, well, and I think we're slowly, I know in Chicago, as I was saying at the beginning, that we're getting ready to officially reopen. They're taking
Yeah, I
the
know June 11th,
the
Friday, right?
all the restrictions off on June 11th, which I think people are super relieved to kind of just be able to breathe again, or at least, I was throughout the whole thing. I've been living my life. I haven't really changed much of anything except for being more healthy. Like, I
Yeah.
just basically went in and said, okay, I was being pretty healthy before, but let's be ultra healthy, and that worked pretty well for me.
Hmm.
But I understand. There's all kinds of like so many things about the experience that I think people it's going to take them some time to sort of come out of the craziness of this whole thing, and psychologically, it was so devastating that I think that people are, it's almost like when you, it's like Stockholm syndrome. Like if you've been
Hmm.
abused and you're coming out of that situation, you might not know, oh, it's okay. You're totally safe now. Everything's cool, but you're still worried, or you're still, and so I think that I think that people that feel that way are still feeling that, because of that, because of the fact that it was a psychological
Oh,
operation that
yes.
affected the masses. And so I think that that is without a doubt what happened, and it's going to take time, but I think that it's great to know that we're at least moving in a direction towards regular, being humans again, and having real conversations and real connections. And I think it's important for us to, I think that what we learned from this too is, and I'm curious to hear what you think about this as well, but I think that one of the things I know I learned was the value of live performance. And I feel like when I wasn't performing, I was kind of tired of performing in a way, because I've done performing my whole life. And, whether it was dance or musical theater or music, like just so much performing. And then in college, you do a bunch of performing because you're in college, and that's what you have to do. And so I just had kind of was a little burnt out for a little bit, even though,
Hmm.
because I had done it my whole life, and taking a break from it. Now, I have a performance coming up next week, and
Oh, good.
so excited for it. I'm like, yes, it's so, feels so
Congratulations.
good to like actually be outside. It's going to be outside, so
Hmm.
it will be very easy for people to, keep their distance and whatever they need to do. But I'm just excited to be sharing, because music is so powerful, and I'm
And
sure that you've,
healing and soothing.
yeah,
Ugh,
absolutely. Right.
yeah,
And so we need that. And so
you
what is
do.
your take real quick on, or not take, but what's your opinion on virtual performances versus live performances?
Oh, you can't compare them. There's, it's nothing like live, with the audience out there. I'm not a singer, but I talk to a lot of singers and entertainers, and they say just walking out on that stage, even a musician, and they hear that they screaming and yelling and clapping, it's like they feed off of that. It's energy. It's
Yeah.
pure energy. It's like they can be in a bad mood or don't feel like doing it or whatever, and once they hit that stage, another side of them, like when Beyonce used to say she was Sasha, it's like you're a different character, and it's just a high that they get,
Yeah.
and I I think it's wonderful. Virtual, it took me a minute to understand and get to virtual because, you know, you don't have the live audience, and it seemed like more of a dress rehearsal, or sound check, because you don't have the clapping. That's one of the reasons why I didn't do a Dream Award virtual, because it's totally different. I'm so glad we be coming back, because I don't know how much longer that I could have taken this virtual versus live. But I will say this: having the virtual in the COVID, it gave a lot of entertainers, especially local entertainers, a platform to be on Instagram, Facebook Live, TikTok, and or face, and do entertainment where a lot of people probably wouldn't have been paying them any attention, and they got attention from people to showcase their art,
Mhm.
and a lot of people have gotten work from that. And so I think it was great that that's kind of like a good thing for them, that the local entertainers were able to showcase itself. Like I said before, we have some really great local entertainers. You yourself, Regina Rice, Tracy Townsend, who's a blues singer, Julia Huff, Opal Staples, Otley Reed. We have some excellent local entertainers. We had a group here named Next Movement that moved to Las Vegas. My husband brought them out to Las Vegas for a whole entire year, put them in a hotel. They're still in Las Vegas. They're doing well. I know I push Las Vegas a lot because I lived there uh, twice. I look at it as my second home. There are some excellent local entertainers out there. You got Darkest, you got Earl Turner, you have Bobby Rose, Linda Woodson, Melanie Moore Seals, you have Ivana Paris Red. Uh,
Wow.
these are just groups that I can just name that are out there doing their thing. Clint Holmes, uh, that are performing, uh, Serena Henry. These are people that, if you go to Vegas, look them up. My husband's late friend who had Greg Austin's Second Wind, they were at the South Point and over at Texas Station, along with the late Phil Flowers, who he sung like Luther Vandross. He was excellent in Las Vegas. I mean, these are excellent local entertainers, and people got to understand you can get some good local entertainment if you cannot afford the 17, 18, 25, 125,000 that these artists ask for. So if your budget is not like that, then think about looking at your local entertainment. And that's why I keep trying to tell people, they can put on a show just like on a high end, but you don't over exceed yourself. If you can't, nothing can irritate an artist if you don't have their money. And I mean that. So if you cannot afford that budget, then think locally. And you'll
And
be
it's
surprised.
respectful to the art. That's showing respect to the
I show them
artist for
respect
what they
because I'm gonna tell
do.
you something.
Right.
You can give that artist that deposit. If you don't have that other part of their money, Johnny Taylor, Tyrone Davis was like that. They wasn't going on stage. I'm sorry. They don't care how many people was out there in that audience. You got to give them their money, and they wanted it at that time in cash. So you
Yeah.
couldn't blame them.
Yeah.
But uh, I mean, I'm just like I said. I like old school music. You got uh, well, another person that I do look at as far as I go to for advice, and and that's Terrell Austin from the Manhattans. You know, he has been a saint in directing me and helping me, especially when I started doing the Dream Award, and has given me extremely good advice. And
Yeah, can
so
you talk a little bit about that? Because I was going to ask you a little bit about the Dream Awards, because not everybody knows what
that
that
was
is.
something that my husband, it came about from him. Uh, Unfortunately, my husband passed away from cancer, but he used to, uh, in the middle of the night, he would talk to me and say, Mabel, if I could go back to Las Vegas, because he used to be the first entertainment director on the strip. So he used to say, if I could go back and honor all the trailblazers in the lounges and showrooms that paved the way for the artists in Las Vegas today, because he believed in giving your flowers while you're alive and not when you die. He says, I will go back and do an award show, but I would make sure everybody will dress up because he was a dresser. He had a nickname called Fashion Plate. And he says, I would do an award show and give them an award. So he talked about this so much that after he passed, to get me past the grieving, I just jumped in there and started this award show. It's a nonprofit 501c3 where we acknowledge entertainers, people, and media uh, for their work in television. So in 2017, I brought out the Dream Award in Las Vegas, and I honored about 20 people in Las Vegas. It was a showstopper, and it sold out. I was like, I was a little stressed because I'd never done anything like that before. But what I did do is I did my homework. I would watch every award show that come on TV, and then I would attend any award show that I could and write down what I shouldn't do and what I should do. And one
Mm.
thing that I was told, make sure that you have a stage manager. You cannot do everything by yourself. And I did. I had a stage manager, I had a band. I had a musical director, and I let him do everything, so I didn't have to worry about that kind of uh, job. I had the host, and I put it at the Suncoast Hotel in Las Vegas, and it sold out. The following year, I did it at the same hotel, and I recognized some of the people that were like talent agents, you know. And some of the people I honored in 2017 was like, as I mentioned earlier, like Darkest, Janice Carter, Freddie Empire, Next Movement, Second Wind, Sonny Turner, who are the Platters, Sonny Charles are the Checkmates, uh, Lamont McLemore, founder of the Fifth Dimension, and then Kathy Spearhart, who was the entertainment director at the Cannery Hotel. These
Mhm.
are the people, the late Jean Marie, Denise Clementi, Freddie Empire. I honored those individuals who, the next movement, who did blood, sweat, and tears. Because back in those days, when they was performing in Las Vegas, they were doing 3 to 4 shows a night. They don't do that in Las Vegas anymore because they don't have lounge shows. So these people don't even know what these individuals went through to be where they are today. So that is one of the reasons why I honored them. And in the second year, I honored a few people that were like booking agents, like Helen Greer, Skip Trenier from the Trenier Brothers, Bobby Rose. And then I did an honor, a tribute to Dennis Edwards from the Temptations, who led the Temptations to all the Grammys. I did a tribute to Aretha Franklin. I had Gerald Alston and the Manhattans there the first 2 years. I also gave them an award. Gerald for his years with the Manhattans, Troy Mays and David Tyson for 25 years with the Manhattans, and I also honored uh, the late great Blue Lovett, who was the founder of the Manhattans, and Dwight Fields, who filled in after Blue passed away. And they wasn't expecting it. It was so funny when I gave David and Troy their award and Gerald because they was it was a surprise to them that I honored them. But I like giving people their flowers and seeing how people are very surprised. But I did not do a show in 2019 because of the fact that I was not feeling well, and neither was my friend Greg Austin. And we decided to take a break and put some things together. And then 2020, people here in Chicago was beating me up saying, "Why do you keep taking it to Las Vegas? Why don't you bring it here to Chicago? Why don't you do it here?" So I'm like, okay. So I decided to do it here in Chicago. But I'm gonna tell you something. I see why Chicago do not have award shows here. I see why there's not things going on like it should be here in Chicago because the union is will kill you here. The pricing of places here, the union will just tear up your pocketbook. That is the reason why the ticket prices in Chicago are like 2, 3, 4, 500. Like Urban League charges 750. Because when you get done with that dinner and gratuity and decorations and all that, it's adding up. And it's cheaper to do it in Las Vegas. Honestly, it is. Uh, they don't. The people in Las Vegas are not looking to spend that kind of money because they just want to come to a show and they are paid the cash for a drink. But here in Chicago, people are going. They're looking for appetizers, drinks, dinner. And so when you get done, in order to make any money and pay these people that you got on the show and everything, and putting these entertainers up in the hotel, you got to make your ticket price about $400. And this is the things I'm saying that people don't understand why I hadn't done it in Chicago. And now I see why we have not had anything here in Chicago. And everybody runs to places like Las Vegas to have the show because it's cheaper. Honestly, it is. It really is. And who doesn't want to go to Vegas? Trust me, it's easy to tell I want to do something. People are so quick to want to go to Vegas. And so, again, I can tell you why I had not decided to do anything in Chicago. I'm telling you, just to rent a theater here in Chicago, you're looking at $15,000 to $20,000.
Wow.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, and now that's not the lighting and sound. That's not the technician. So you ain't thought about all that, and the insurance, and plus, and don't go over. If you say you're doing it from 7 to 9, once it's 9:01, it's time to have. It's brutal. It's brutal here as far as having events in it. And I'm telling you, I always wonder why we never had award shows here. And that's the reason, you know.
wow. It's kind of like along the same lines of everything else about Chicago's corruption. Because that's the first thing I thought about
I
was,
didn't say that.
well, I mean, I'm not saying you said that. I'm just saying that when you say that, all I could think of is the fact that, people call it the Windy City. And there's a lot of corrupted stuff where, so all I'm recognizing is the fact that when I hear that, there's a lot of hoops that people have. What I've noticed, at least from living here for 11 years, is that it just seems like there's always like tons of hoops, especially black people here that are trying to do anything. It's like and even just if you're not black, like even if you're just trying to do whatever, like a theater thing, there's a so many hoops you have to jump through. And then the fact that it's expensive, what does that do? If
Hmm.
most of the people that are trying to make something happen, especially with black people, I mean, I would say that, the minority of our people are in that sort of mega billionaire place, and the majority of our people are not in that place. So like if anybody wanted to try to do something, or create something, that creates a barrier of entry for anybody, especially for people in our community. So that's definitely something. So one of my biggest questions around this is sort of, because one thing, for instance, this week I'm doing a porch concert. So this is a
Oh,
prior
yeah.
client of mine who asked me to do a concert on his front porch, and I was like, yeah, why not? Because I mean, sure, it seems kind of like, well, a front porch, that's not very formal, but it's also kind of about the fact that, you know, what is music about? Music is about connecting. It's about community. It's about
Hmm.
getting the message out there and bring people together. And so that's kind of what this is about. And it also made me realize, I talked to a friend about it who's also he's a dancer, and he's a playwright, and he's got, all kinds of stuff he's trying to do and trying to get off the ground and working on, his own show that he's working on and everything. And he was saying how, oh, maybe I'll rent out my parking lot and do something in the parking lot, do something outside, do some kind of performance or something. And what it really made me think about is the direction, because yes, things are starting to open up, but also I think that this gives us an opportunity to think about less conventional ways that we can make this work, and not necessarily, maybe, for instance, let's say somebody rents out their house, or they rent, a lot of people are
Hmm.
doing house concerts. And so one of the things that I think of is, solutions, because yes, things are starting to open, but we're still having some, again, it's slow and steady, and there's going to be obviously lots of people there's going to be a lot of competition now, because
Yeah.
everybody, now that it's open again, everybody's going to be trying to do this, get back in the
Yeah, it's
game
true.
at the same time. But it also brings an opportunity for, instead of everybody going for the same thing and just going back to normal, people could also look at other ways, like outdoor concerts, porch concerts,
Hmm.
house concerts, and other kinds of ways that people can do that. So I'm curious if you've thought about, the future and sort of the future of the entertainment industry, and how we can kind of move forward. Not necessarily I'm not saying like the virtual technology stuff. How can we continue to sort of keep live music alive, even when, there's a lot of sort of the complications that are happening around that? What are your best sort of solutions for what we need to do moving forward? Because we definitely have, like I said, I think that we don't need to talk about COVID because
Yeah.
five people had, five people died from it. At this point, we're done with it. But I think that if we talked about ways that we can move forward in terms of the entertainment industry and really get people start performing and
Hmm.
have you thought about that, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, you have to keep yourself out there. And I tell a lot of entertainers, like you said earlier, you've gotten lazy. You felt lazy. You don't want to do. Other entertainers said it to me. I don't feel like doing this. You got to keep your name out there. Like one of my friends was an entertainer, uh, Freddie B. He stays out there, promoting himself on the social media. You have to. Marshall from the Childlights, he keeps his name out there on Facebook. You have to keep yourself out there because that old saying, out of sight, out of mind. And if you don't want to do it, hire somebody to do it. You know, it's just what all this has been going on. I think music is the most healing and soothing thing in the world. I don't care what category of music you like. But I think uh, moving forward, we have to work together, stop putting each other down, support each other as artists, because there are people in the entertainment industry that do not support each other, and that's not nice. And I think that each entertainer, at the end of the day, we're all out here trying to make money for our family, put food on our table. So you just support each other, and then stop saying, "Well, that person, I don't want to work with that person. I don't want to do this." Excuse me, don't do that. Don't put that person down. Don't ask why that person is not singing or why they're not doing. Don't do that. If you don't can't be positive, then don't say anything. Stop being negative. But a lot of entertainers are very negative toward each other, and that's not good.
Right,
And I
it's like
will
a
say
cutthroat industry.
it is. And because they call me a lot and say things about each other, and I'm like, well, isn't that your friend? Why would you say that about that? Then it makes me think this. If you say that about them and they thought you were their friends, what are you saying about me?
Right, but I feel that I'm right
You
with
know,
you on that. I feel
and
that
I'm like
too.
saying, well, first
Mm-hmm.
of all, I didn't go to school to be a therapist. So don't be calling me and talking about another entertainer, you know, because that entertainer could be my friend, and I don't like it, and I'm not, and I'm like, yeah, don't do that. But like I said, we are all in this together to try to make a living for our family, put food on our table, pay our bills, and we need to learn to work together. And I'm being honest, and stop putting people down, each other down. I mean,
And
really.
we're powerful. We're more. This is the thing that This is one of the reasons why I started this show, and because I mean, I'm not. I put all of everything that you see, everything in this show. I've just done because I don't get paid for it. I don't have a crew. Everything that you see, I did on my own, because I have a dream. Not to sound like Martin Luther King, but I want to. I want to see our people working together, and I want to keep, I want to create those communities. I want to create, because when we have community and we really do care about each other, we don't need to live in a scarcity mindset where there's not enough to go around. And I think that one thing
Hmm.
I've noticed about Chicago, and I don't know what Las Vegas is like because I've never lived there, but living here for 10, 11 years in Chicago, I've noticed this. There's a scarcity mindset out here. There's a survival mindset of like, oh, I gotta survive. I just gotta survive. I gotta self-preservation. I gotta just take care of myself. I gotta just, survive. I gotta just, I gotta make friends with this person just so that I can get what I want and get out. And then, I've just seen people do a lot of things where they'll, be fake with you just to get something from you, and then once they get what they want, they're done. And we need to stop doing. I agree with you. We need to stop doing that because we're not serving ourselves in the
Hmm.
bigger picture. In the short term, maybe you get what you want, but we could get what we want and more if we
Hmm.
live in an abundance mindset And that's, I mean, that's what white people are doing. That's why they're doing their new age abundance and all that, because that's what they need to do to be successful. That's what we need to do. That's what we've always done. They're actually
Yes.
stealing that from our culture anyway. That all the stuff that the new age stuff, that's all stuff that they've recycled from ancestral knowledge that we've had for years that we just got disconnected from because
Mm-hmm.
of the culture. So we have to get back. That's why this show is called Black to Business, because we need to get black to business. We need to get back to our business. We need to get back to
Mm-hmm.
who we are and what we came here to do, which is illuminate the world, because we are melanated people, and melanin is power. Melanin is the power of the dark matter, dark matter, which is, when I say dark matter, I mean in terms of like in science, or in science and astronomy, um, dark matter is not measurable. They can't measure it. They don't know how big, or how it's so expansive that they don't have a number for it. Which to me, that's like what we are. We're so expansive.
Mm-hmm.
Our potential so expansive. We're universe particles. In other words, the sky's the limit. That's why you see so many black people doing so many amazing
Mm-hmm.
things and overcoming, just like yourself, overcoming, all these different hardships and just doing things that you just would never think. And that's why they're always copying everything we do and all of that. It's about time. This is the perfect time to get black to business. It's the perfect time to work together. And one of the things that I would love to do once I'm, am in a place financially where I could like have something like this, is actually get people. I mean, people are probably already doing this, but there needs to be more black owned music. Like for instance, with you have your own company. There needs to be more companies like that. There needs to be more black owned entertainment. We need to take more control of the music industry. We do have control, and we are in control of a lot of aspects of the music industry, but we need people that are in control of black music need to be on that level of let's work together, not
Mm-hmm.
like we're gonna take all of the money and we're gonna keep, again, because there's some people that purposely, they're doing very well, they could create something and
Mm-hmm.
they choose not to, and they choose to keep it for themselves, and be a part of the rich the rich kids club or whatever, and instead of taking that money and putting it back into the community, or taking even a portion, like, it's not to say you're gonna be broke, but I
Mm-hmm.
mean, if I ever were to get a million gazillion dollars or something, i would I would make a school.
Yeah.
Like, I want, because I want to see that. Like, I want to actually see, I want to have a school, or have do something to actually make the world a better place. But it's like some of the people, they don't. Now I'm kind of rambling, but some of the people, they don't want to do that. And so the only reason I mention that is because we need to think about that. That's what this show is about. The fact that we need to think about what kind of entertainment industry do we want for
Mm-hmm.
our black musicians in the future. And that's one of my other questions. We're just about wrapping up here.
Well, I
So I
just
have.
want to tell you that people think it's easy in Las Vegas. It's not easy in Las Vegas getting in there, especially in a major hotel, being black. You know, you got to know how to uh, walk in there, talk, and negotiate. And once you do, I'm gonna tell you, when I saw my name of the Dream Awards on the marquee, that is a feeling. Oh my God, I would never forget when I saw the marquee. You know, and then the next thing I saw was sold out. You know, it's like you have arrived. You know, it's a good feeling. I guess it's like being a singer and you see your name saying performing tonight. But people think Vegas is very easy. Vegas is harder than doing something here in Chicago. Trust me. It's easier to do it in Chicago. It's just more expensive to do it in Chicago.
Mm,
But once you get uh, your reputation out there, and I'm telling you, that's what it's all about. Is your respect and reputation. You can just go as far as you can in Las Vegas because they respect you now.
So do you think that there is anything that the black community can do to really give black entertainers a better industry moving forward? Are there things that we could do as a community? I know I have some ideas, but I want to hear what you have to say first before I say
Well,
what I
I
think.
think we should they should do more festivals
Mhm.
in the community. Uh, Remember they used to have the Bud Fest throughout the different cities, and Budweiser was the sponsor. We also have the African Festival here in Chicago that has the different artists that they bring outside. Um, that's what I'm saying. If you come up with those kind of things, because everybody can attend a gala and pay $300 or $400 a ticket. Because when you talk about two people, you're looking at $600. So if you if you can come up with different things like that, I think that will work. Or if these promoters can come together and bring in 4 or 5 groups and do shows and give back, I think that will work. Um, Again, uh, I know it's all about money because sometimes you want to have 4 or 5 artists on the show, but some of these artists ask for a certain amount of money, and if you can't pay them, you can't have maybe 2 or 3 artists. If that's the artist that you're trying to draw to sell the ticket. Um, Another thing maybe is support these nonprofit organizations that are trying to have galas and look at entertainment. Look at, like I said, some of your local entertainers to perform at your gala and and help them out. Uh, then you can, especially nonprofit, because nonprofit always like, please, can you help me? Can you help me? They in a budget. So again, that's why I said ask your local entertainment that you'd be surprised. Local entertainers are awesome. You know, they they can perform just as good sometimes as you get a name. They just don't have the name. But they won't have that name if you don't support them. So you need to support them.
Right, right, exactly. Otherwise, then we just have a bunch of Miley Cyruses and Katy Perry's
Yeah.
instead of, and we need to have Aretha Franklin's. We don't have those anymore. It's like we have them. Okay, I shouldn't say that. We have them, but they're not being put in the spotlight right
Mm.
now. And the only people that can put them in the spotlight are
People
we
like
have to.
myself that can
Right,
hire them to open up, or a
right.
promoter that
So
can
in
add them onto a
promoters.
show with
Mm-hmm.
another major artist. That's
Mm-hmm.
another way. That's what I'm saying. If you mix it up a little bit and give that local entertainer an opportunity to work with a big name on the bill, because you'd be surprised the following that a local entertainer has. Until
Yeah.
you start talking to them, you say, "Oh my God, they got a lot of following here." Look, and I tell you one thing, it wouldn't cost you as much. You ain't got to put them up. You ain't got to fly them in. So they couldn't be like an opening act. I'm being honest. A lot of people need to consider that, and that would help. And then you can bring in a big name that can sell your tickets. But when you're thinking really big and you want all these big names, now you got to put 10 people up, 20 over here, and you're stressing yourself out because now you got to pay them. Where are you getting the money from? Is it ticket sales or selling, or is it not? You have to do your homework. You have to make sure that there's nothing else going on at the same time that you're hosting your event. And that's another thing that we as black people need to do is talk to each other when you want to put an event together. Another promoter needs to talk to someone else and say, hey, what okay, Mabel, you do your Dream Award. What month? But let's not touch August because that's the month that Mabel always does the Dream Award. Let's do October. Let's not be competing each other trying to pull money in different directions. You can't do that. You should not do that. You should give each other respect and say, you know what, I'm not going to touch that month because that's Urban League's month, that's NAACP's month, that's the Black Women's Expo month. That's what I do. I call the different people and say, what month are you having your event? That's showing nothing but respect.
Mm-hmm.
And then you turn around and now you know when to host your event. That's not taking money out of your pocket. Now you know your ticket's going to sell because black people as a whole cannot afford sometimes to pay a ticket over here and 2 weeks later there's somebody over here. So they got to pick and choose. You know, well, I want to see Gladys, but now El Green is going to be here. I can't afford $125 over here, and 2 nights later she's over here, and then that could be their favorite artist. You know, but if that promoter had talked to that other promoter and maybe put Gladys coming in, and although her schedule may be looking at her schedule, you could say A or B, a C lick, and say, well, you know what? Let me ask Gladys people, can she do uh, August, October? Give us some dates and throw it out there. And then talk to that other promoter and see what when they're looking to do their event. Then you're not bumping heads. And
Yeah.
that's,
Yeah.
yeah, do your homework. And that would help a lot of people. And I tell you, it would help black people in the community with their money, saving up their money to buy the ticket. Because you got to buy the ticket as a customer, and you got to pay for parking. And we all know in Chicago, parking is high, especially if anything is being held downtown.
Yeah.
You know, so those are the things that people need to consider and be a little bit mindful moving forward, especially with this pandemic. Everybody, a lot of people lost their job. A lot of people lost their, they're not working, unfortunately, and you got to be very careful about that now.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like thank you so much, Mabel. I feel like everything that you're saying is so important, and it just seems so simple, like, oh yeah, we need to talk, we need to communicate. But I'm telling you, some of the most simplest things are some of the things that people totally take for granted and do not pay attention to and don't think about. Simple things like communication, simple things like honesty, simple things like just, making sure, double checking, making sure that that you're clear, that you know what you need to do, or that the other person knows what you need from them. Communication is like one of the
That's
things
the key.
that is, oh, it is so key. And if you can get that down, I think sometimes with us, with black people, we got sometimes with our language, and especially because we're not speak we're, because of the fact, because of everything we've gone through with slavery, with being stripped away from our mother tongue, and then having another language, but then not really, having people that were illiterate for certain periods of time, but then also being having, we've just had all these different factors, right, that I think make
Mm-hmm.
it hard for us sometimes to really communicate. Because if you look at like white people, all of them are very educated. They've always been educated. They always kind of have this very streamlined way of communicating using proper English or whatever. But because our people have all these different experiences that we've gone through, and the diaspora and all kinds of stuff, sometimes we get lost in the sauce of communication, and there's certain phrases and certain things that we say to each other that don't really help with that. So we have to look, I think, as a community at how do we communicate with each other? How do we just make sure that we are on the same page, and that I understand what you're saying and you understand what I'm saying? And I think if we could really get focus on that as a community, we will be able to be successful,
Yes,
because that's one of the things that is unfortunately keeping people from really getting to that level,
correct.
is that they can't have good relationships with other people because of the communication and the misunderstandings that happen because of that miscommunication and inability for people to understand each other,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so understanding and communication to me are like two of the biggest things that I feel like I notice are lacking in our communities. And the more that we just tackle that problem and ask questions and go, well, what are you really saying? Wait, is this what you're saying? Is this what or wait a minute. We just need to take some time with all that. So I really, like I said, I am so appreciative of you taking the time to share some of your wisdom, your knowledge,
Well,
the
thank
things
you.
that you've learned. And I know that the people that are in this stream really appreciated it. We had some really great comments, and I was kind of getting so into the discussion that I
We
didn't
did?
show
We're
a
good.
lot of these comments, but I'm just gonna go through some of it. We had some messages. Um, Loretta Holloway earlier said, "Thank you, Mable Buckner, for a fabulous and first class event." Loretta Holloway, South Carolina's official First Lady of Song. So she said, she mentioned she had a comment. And then we also had, Betty Peyton White said, "Great discussion, ladies." So I just want to thank
Well,
every.
let me tell you about Betty White.
Oh, yes, please.
Betty is the wife, the widow of Buddy Blue Boy White, this blues singer. That was her husband. Yes.
Oh.
Chicago is the home of blues, and Audie was one of them. We had some great blues singers, like Cicero Blake, Tyrone Davis, Junior Wells, Buddy Guy, Coco Taylor, Muddy Waters, you know, Deidre Farr. We got some good, great, great, great blues artists here in Chicago. So I just want to give her a shout out, but that she's the widow of Audie Blue Boy's wife.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That is so cool. Well, thank you, Betty. Thank you so much for being here. And Loretta, and I know as a millennial, I'm trying to catch up with all the, I even with the jazz, I studied jazz and I know a lot of musicians, but I always feel like I'm always still trying to learn all the history and then keep up with the present too. So this is just a wonderful blessing that that some of these people were able to tune in today and be here with us. And I appreciate anybody who's watching this now. If you are liking this content, I would appreciate it if you're watching on YouTube, if you can hit the subscribe button. If you like what we're doing here, because I'm going to be doing this every month, and I have um, different expertise on experts, not expertise, every month. And so the next month I believe I'm going to be having my friend Mamelo on, who is a scientist and researcher,
Oh wow.
and nutritionist. So she does, yeah, she works with people to help them find other ways to sort of um, get through sort of their health issues. And she uses her background in science and research to help people make informed decisions about how to heal, how to
Mhm.
get on the path to better health. So I'm really excited to have her on here too next month. Just a couple of housekeeping things. Um, and we did have another comment. I just want to share this. Roger Thomas said, "We thought we knew you already, but we learned a lot. This was fantastic."
Oh, thank you.
So yeah. So again, really, really appreciate it. Much love to everybody who was watching today. There will be a replay of this. So this link for this show, you can share it with your friends, your family, whoever you think might benefit from this information. And like I said, if you like the content, please like and subscribe. I'm trying to build this up uh, just to get the message out there, and also to create a community. I have a website, but www.magifest.space, and there I'm creating a social media alternative. I have a Black Tea Party group on that website that I use to help people. Eventually, it's going to be there for people to use as a way to sort of connect with each other without having to deal with like Facebook and the algorithms and all of these sort of complicated
Mm.
stuff, and make it more simple. So that is actually there. Anybody can sign up. It's totally free. I'm not interested in people's data. Um, and then I also want to share the Dream Awards website. Is it okay if I share that
Go
website
right
link
ahead.
for the Dream Awards?
Go ahead.
Okay, perfect. So
Thank you.
right at the bottom here, the Dream Awards. That's Mabel's website. And we're excited. You said you're going to be kicking it back up next year.
Yes. Working on it
Okay.
now.
All right. Well, I know I already talked to Mabel about. We already agreed and said I'm gonna have her back on the show anyway. once I have more followers again, as I get up there too, I'm gonna have you back on the show, and I would love to have you back on the show, because you are a well house of wisdom, and we very much appreciate you.
I
So,
appreciate you. Thank you
yeah,
so much for having
thank
me.
you.
I truly appreciate it. This has really been a wonderful evening. And anything that I can do for you, Myra, I have your back. That's what it's about, supporting each other.
Thank you. Thank you. You have been, like I said, you have been a blessing. And I see you as, like, I'm sure when I'm like your age, I'll be talking about you just like you were talking about Mary D, and how, you had mentors, and I see you as a mentor in my life,
Oh, thank
and
you. Well,
somebody
of course,
that
I'll
I
do
really
anything to help you.
admire and appreciate. So, yeah, we need this. We need to have these kinds of connections. And so I hope
I'll
that
be glad
everybody,
to mentor you.
yeah, thank you so much. So I just want, like I said, thanking everyone. And I'm just gonna play our little outro
And
video.
thanks everyone for joining in tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you
Thank you
so
so much for
much.
taking such a beautiful day here in Chicago. So thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to tune in to this show. Good
Thank you
night.
guys so much, everyone. Have a good night.
Black, black to business. We're a family, melanated we need to breathe, need to see the truth from the wisdom. Hey. Cause diamonds hiding beyond our pain, our name, our